China holds a collection of natural wonders so strange that they seem unreal, yet remain grounded. Holds a collection of natural wonders so strange. Across the country, landscapes form in ways that challenge expectation, shaped by vast spans of time, pressure, and powerful geological forces. Many of these places lie in remote regions, rarely seen, where mountains, valleys, and stone formations follow patterns unlike anywhere else on Earth. Join us as we explore Impossible China, a journey into unbelievable wonders that do not seem real, yet exist as measurable parts of our world. Qiantang River tidal bore is the largest rivermouth tidal wave on Earth, with peak crests rising to nearly 30 feet as ocean tides are forced upstream into a narrow channel. At maximum intensity, wave fronts from different directions collide head-on, forming X-shaped intersections or vertical water columns shooting into the air. Within seconds, the river surface splits into two states, one side remaining calm, while the other becomes a fast-moving wall of water. For more than 2,500 years of recorded Chinese history, from ancient imperial eras to the age of artificial intelligence, the bore appears at nearly the exact predicted time, driven by astronomical cycles. Around the 18th day of the 8th lunar month each year, over 170,000 people gather along the riverbanks for the traditional tidal observation festival. Before the bore arrives, all boats must be pulled ashore, because any vessel left behind can be overturned in as little as 3 seconds. Gaoyiling stands out with massive red rock ridges known as the Natural Great Wall, stretching for several miles like a colossal fortress sculpted by nature. Seen from above, the dragon-back terrain cuts sharply across vibrant blue lakes, making the entire scene resemble a sci-fi Mars landscape more than an earthly mountain. The most surreal feature is that while the surrounding area is lush with vegetation, all the rocky summits here remain bare and smooth, as if hand-polished by invisible tools. Some ridge sections are so narrow they barely fit a single human foot, with vertical cliffs on both sides plunging hundreds of feet down. One iconic peak juts out into the lake in the perfect shape of a giant lizard crawling down for a drink. For years, travelers have walked along this dragon's spine with no guardrails, no ropes, and absolutely no safety equipment. Ulan Lake lies deep within the Tengah Desert, where visitors travel across miles of shifting dunes in off-road vehicles to reach it. Seen from helicopters or satellite images, the lake forms an almost perfect heart shape, featuring symmetrical organic curves that are difficult to justify through conventional geological processes. Its blood-red waters result from salinity levels many times higher than seawater and extreme alkalinity, creating an environment where most organisms cannot survive. Yet specialized extremophile algae and bacteria thrive here, producing the vivid red coloration and demonstrating survival strategies comparable to those on distant planetary surfaces. Encircling the lake, a network of white salt channels resembles biological capillaries, and the mechanism behind this stark separation of red water and white mineral rims remains unresolved among geologists. Yuntai Mountain is one of the very few mountain systems in China shaped primarily by vertical development, with sheer cliffs rising roughly 600 to 900 feet and lacking any flared mountain base for load dispersion. Its red rock layers date back approximately 1.4 billion years, standing in stark contrast to a turquoise river flowing through the canyon, a color combination that defies normal geological expectation. Many cliff faces rise higher than a 20-story building, with slopes approaching a near 90-degree angle and no transitional incline, forming massive natural walls rather than conventional mountainsides. To sustain waterfalls during dry seasons, large water pipelines are concealed inside the natural rock mass, revealing a level of human control over hydrology rarely applied at this scale. In 2015, a glass panel on a walkway over 3,300 feet above ground fractured, yet visitor numbers continued to rise rather than decline afterward. Changbai is a rare shield volcano where the summit forms a massive depression at over 7,000 feet above sea level, completely inverting the usual expectation of what a mountain peak should be. At the top lies Heaven Lake, a deep body of water filling the crater, recognized as the highest crater lake in the world, accessible to visitors. In winter, temperatures can fall below -40 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze breath instantly, yet Changbai Waterfall continues pouring through terrain covered in permanent ice. Some visitors have come 10 times and still never seen the lake's surface, as the summit is almost always sealed by fog, clouds, and pressure layers, creating the illusion that it belongs to a different dimension. That white blanket covering the summit isn't snow, but pumice, residue from a super eruption in the year 946, ranked among the most powerful volcanic events in recorded human history. Jilin City stands out for its cold season landscape, typical of Northeast Asia, surrounded by mountains, frozen lakes, and the calm Songhua River flowing through its urban center. At the peak of winter, branches across the city become coated in shimmering white ice crystals, appearing as if snow has fallen, even though no snowflakes actually reach the ground. This is a rare, natural rime ice phenomenon that forms every year as water vapor freezes directly onto surfaces rather than falling as snow. The display lasts only a few hours, and when the sun rises, the entire ice layer collapses at once like a crystal rain and vanishes without a trace. While nearby lakes freeze solid, the Songhua River continues to flow through the city even at -22 degrees Fahrenheit, as deeper water and slow currents release enough warmth to supply vapor for ice crystallization. Chaka Salt Lake is a natural salt lake with over 3,000 years of extraction history, globally known for its ability to mirror the sky onto a perfectly flat water surface. The salt layer beneath the lake is extremely thick, ranging from roughly 16 feet to nearly 49 feet, with reserves estimated to supply China's population of over 1.4 billion people for almost 100 years. One of the most iconic sites is an old railway track stretching more than 2.5 miles straight into the center of the lake, originally built for salt transport, and now a major photography landmark. During rainfall, the outer surface of the salt statues partially dissolves, but sunlight causes the salt to recrystallize, creating a natural self-repairing process. Visitors can rent protective boots to walk far into the lake, where ankle-deep water extends endlessly toward the horizon, producing a highly unusual spatial experience. Chagan Lake is one of the largest freshwater lakes in China, known for the winter fishing ritual, where massive nets haul up hundreds of tons of fish at once from a frozen surface. Each net stretches roughly 1.2 miles beneath thick ice and is pulled entirely by horsepower, with giant horses serving as the only engines instead of modern machinery. Every winter, thousands of people step onto the ice to repeat a fishing method dating back to the Liao dynasty around 900 AD. Hundreds of ice holes are drilled with precise spacing to encircle fish schools beneath the vast lake, forming a harvesting system that appears almost geological. During only a few festival weeks, over 2 million pounds of fish are harvested without depletion, as the lake's ecosystem remains balanced through natural regeneration in extreme winter conditions. The Three Gorges Dam spans the Yangtze River in Hubei Province, China, and is regarded as one of the largest hydroelectric structures ever built by humans. The reservoir behind the dam holds about 39.3 billion cubic meters of water, with a total mass estimated at roughly 42 billion tons concentrated within a fixed section of the river valley. This enormous redistribution of mass altered Earth's moment of inertia, slowing the planet's rotation by approximately 0.06 microseconds and shifting the geographic pole by nearly 2 centimeters. The dam body was constructed using about 988 million cubic feet of concrete and more than 510,000 tons of steel, an amount sufficient to build 63 Eiffel Towers. To make room for the reservoir, 13 cities, 140 towns, and over 1,300 villages were removed, forcing around 1.3 million people to relocate in the largest resettlement operation ever recorded for a hydroelectric project. Mount Imei is one of the 4 sacred Buddhist mountains of China, where extreme terrain, stratified climate, and religious heritage intersect across more than 2,000 years. The statue of Samantabhadra here stands about 157 feet tall, weighs roughly 728 tons, and is gilded with real gold, serving as a sacred landmark above the clouds. At the highest elevations, sunlight refracts to create a rare phenomenon known as the Buddha halo, where a human silhouette appears on cloud layers surrounded by a perfect circular aura. The cloud sea of Mount Imei forms a shallow ocean of vapor that conceals the landscape below and at times becomes cascading cloud falls, dropping thousands of feet into the valleys. Rainforest conditions dominate the foothills, while freezing temperatures and snow appear near the summit, supporting more than 3,000 plant species, representing roughly 1/10 of China's total botanical diversity. Mount Fanjing is a sacred mountain located in Guizhou Province, China, and is regarded as the Bodhi site of Maitreya Buddha in Chinese Buddhism. Its most striking feature is a main summit split, completely in 2 forming separate stone pillars, rising vertically into the air. Each pillar holds an ancient temple, and the 2 are linked by a narrow stone bridge suspended above a deep ravine. The mountain appears as a single vertical stone column with near 90-degree cliffs, giving climbers the sensation of approaching an isolated mass floating in space. Reaching the top requires ascending 8,888 exposed stone steps along cliff edges and windswept sections, combining spiritual devotion with intense physical. Longmen Grottoes ranks among the largest Buddhist cave complexes in the world, with over 100,000 stone statues carved directly into limestone cliffs along the Yi River. Seen from afar, thousands of tightly packed rock chambers make the cliff resemble a massive vertical beehive with no artificial structural support. Just a few feet from a statue, standing about 56 feet tall, there are carvings as small as less than 1 inch, creating an extreme scale contrast within the same space. The cliff walls preserve over 2,800 carved texts and more than 140 medical prescriptions, functioning like a stone data archive for 1,500 years. Every statue displays unique body proportions and facial features, with no two figures exactly alike, despite their immense number. The entire site was formed through more than 4 centuries of uninterrupted work, as generations of stonemasons devoted their lives to carving a single cliff face. Moon Hill is defined by a massive crescent-shaped opening that cuts directly through the top of a limestone peak, forming a rare natural stone arch within karst terrain. The arch rises to roughly 160 feet, and reaching the space beneath it requires climbing more than 800 stone steps along a path known as the Road to the Moon. When viewed from the trail at the base, the opening shifts its apparent shape with each change in position, precisely reproducing the visual phases of the moon from crescent to half moon and full moon. At its thinnest point, the arch measures only several feet thick, yet it supports thousands of tons of limestone above, maintaining mechanical stability against gravity and seismic stress for thousands of years. Due to its near-perfect curved geometry, the interior of the arch functions as a natural acoustic amplifier, allowing even faint sounds from the valley below to be heard clearly at its center. Yaxi Expressway is regarded as one of the most extreme transportation engineering achievements on Earth, as it crosses more than 12 geological fault zones and ancient volcanic systems with latent activity. Over half of the highway length, roughly 55%, runs across deep-span bridges or through tunnels drilled directly into towering rock mountains. On average, the road climbs about 24.6 feet for every mile traveled, creating a cumulative elevation gain equal to 4 Burj Khalifa towers stacked together. The rapid elevation change produces sharp microclimate shifts, where temperature, cloud cover, and visibility transform over very short distances. Drivers can enter a tunnel under intense sunlight and emerge less than 10 minutes later into heavy snowfall caused by the extreme altitude difference between tunnel entrances. Jiuzhaigou Valley is famous for dozens of crystal-clear lakes displaying shades from turquoise and emerald to deep blue, created by mineral content and limestone deposits beneath the water. More than 100 lakes here are not connected by rivers, but by waterfalls, with the entire flow system formed through natural limestone terraces, shaped by tectonic activity over millions of years. The colors of the lakes shift throughout the day, not because of algae or artificial lighting, but due to microscopic limestone crystals on the lake bed, refracting sunlight at different angles. The water is so transparent that fallen ancient tree trunks can be clearly seen resting on the lake floor for hundreds of years without significant decay. This unusual landscape was chosen as a default Windows wallpaper and also served as the filming location for iconic scenes in the 1986 television adaptation of Journey to the West. Yuanyang rice terraces are a vast terraced farming system that has existed for more than 1,200 to 1,300 years, created by the Han people who carved mountain slopes into rice fields using the most basic tools. Even today, plowing and field maintenance rely entirely on human labor and water buffalo, just as their ancestors practiced more than 1,000 years ago. The Han developed an intricate canal network that channels water from primary forests at the mountaintops through villages and delivers it precisely to each individual terrace. This system has operated continuously for over a millennium, without modern technology, often described as a form of natural artificial intelligence built from mud and stone. Due to red algae growing underwater and low-angle sunlight, the terraces can display shifting colors, with adjacent plots appearing bright red, green, or deep purple, like a massive color palette. Ruyi Bridge is a modern pedestrian bridge in China, identified by its continuously curved form and its direct suspension above a deep canyon, differing completely from conventional straight bridge designs. The bridge is constructed at a height of approximately 460 feet above the canyon floor, equivalent to a structure over 40 stories tall, placing the entire system in strong wind and steep terrain conditions. Most of the walking surface is made of transparent tempered glass, allowing direct visibility to the canyon floor and clearly exposing the vertical separation between the bridge and the ground. Because of its continuous curvature, the projected outline of the bridge changes with viewing angle, and no single geometric axis extends along its full length. This curvature also serves an engineering function, dispersing wind loads and reducing stress concentration across the steel framework under high altitude conditions. Taihang Grand Canyon Glass Platform is a strange suspended structure where a glass platform hangs over the edge of a canyon, allowing visitors to walk in mid-air and look straight down into an immense depth below. Unlike many gray stone canyons, this section of the Taihang Grand Canyon is known for its steep sandstone cliffs glowing in intense shades of red. Instead of carving roads around the mountains, people hollowed directly into the cliff walls, creating hand-cut passageways shaped over decades using only hammers and chisels. As you step onto the transparent glass surface at a height of more than 3,000 feet, infrared sensors trigger cracking sounds and visual fractures spreading beneath your feet. Beyond the viewing platform, the site also features a high zip line stretched between two cliff faces, allowing riders to fly straight across the canyon. Mount Mian, also known as Mianshan, is a famous mountain located in Jiuzhaigou City in Shaanxi Province, northern China, widely recognized for its extreme terrain and cliffside architecture. Instead of building at the mountain base, humans constructed an entire architectural complex along the edge of sheer cliffs, making the mountain appear like an ancient city floating in mid-air. Several multi-story palaces weighing thousands of tons are anchored directly into rock faces that rise almost vertically at elevations exceeding 6,500 feet above sea level. To move between sections, visitors must walk along narrow wooden plank paths, only wide enough for one person, with a vertical rock wall on one side and a bottomless drop on the other. Inside some temples, Buddhist statues, worshipped for centuries, conceal naturally preserved, mummified monks whose intact skeletons were confirmed by X-ray scans despite the harsh, high mountain climate. Zhangjiajie National Forest Park is considered one of the most extraordinary natural wonders on Earth and gained worldwide fame after inspiring the visual design of the film Avatar, directed by James Cameron. Instead of continuous mountain ranges, the park features more than 3,000 stone pillars rising directly from deep valleys, with many exceeding 1,300 feet in height, forming a three-dimensional stone forest found nowhere else among national parks worldwide. This unusual geological structure became the real-world model for the floating Hallelujah Mountains on the planet Pandora in Avatar. When mist fills the valleys, which happens very frequently, the lower portions of the pillars disappear entirely, making the rock columns appear to hover in mid-air. Built onto a sheer cliff, the world's tallest outdoor elevator lifts visitors to the summit in just 1 minute and 28 seconds, while record-length cable cars cross chasms hundreds of feet deep, passing so close to the pillars that it feels possible to touch the moss-covered rock surfaces. Flying Kiss is a combined sculpture and thrill ride built on a limestone cliff at an altitude of over 3,200 feet, with two giant metal arms stretching out into the sky. Each statue stands 170 feet tall and functions as a hydraulic lever capable of lifting 120 people standing inside its palm. What shocks most visitors is that there are no seats, no safety belts, and no harnesses. Everyone must remain standing throughout the entire airborne rotation. At the highest point, the massive palm automatically spins 360 degrees around its axis, while the two statues move closer and tilt their heads at a precise angle to simulate a kissing moment. The height of this experience is equivalent to standing on top of 22 stacked Statues of Liberty. Despite being criticized as one of the ugliest structures in China, Flying Kiss still draws thousands of people each year, eager to try this unbelievable sensation. Langshan is referred to by geologists as the soul of Danxia landform because it showcases the most complete and diverse red sandstone structures found anywhere on the planet. The vivid red rock of Langshan forms a surreal contrast with the deep green of surrounding primeval forest, creating an extreme collision between two ecological layers. A natural stone bridge spans open air, suspended nearly 650 feet above ground, so slender that many believe it must have been engineered. Nearby stands a perfectly cylindrical mountain peak rising over 650 feet, its pointed top shaped like a red candle, yet it holds an underground spring that flows year-round. On foggy days, the rounded peaks below appear like a pod of giant whales surfacing from solid ground. Detian Waterfall is the largest transnational waterfall in Asia and ranks fourth worldwide among waterfalls that sit directly on an international border. The site has also served as a real-world backdrop for several popular Chinese fantasy films where the natural scenery appears almost untouched by visual effects. The base of the falls, small bamboo rafts carry visitors close to the cascading water, where taking a single step can place you in another country. Surrounding the waterfall are symmetrical cone-shaped limestone hills with smooth, rounded peaks that look almost hand-sculpted. Because of the widespread mist and fine water spray, Detian can generate 2 to 3 rainbows at the same time, with a third arc sometimes appearing on the mountainside nearly 300 feet above the water surface. The Leshan Giant Buddha is the tallest stone Buddha statue in the world, carved directly into a cliff face of Mount Lingyun, at the point where three major rivers converge. Construction began in the year 713 during the Tang dynasty, led by the monk Haitong, who believed the massive figure could calm violent waters and protect passing boats. Rather than a statue placed onto a mountain, this monument is an entire mountainside carved into human form over 90 years of labor, turning natural geology into sacred architecture. A single foot can hold around 100 people, while the shoulders stretch about 80 feet wide, roughly the size of a standard basketball court, if someone could stand there. Beyond its scale, the statue is surrounded by modern accounts of eyes closing, tears appearing, or a glowing halo forming around its head during years linked to disasters and major social upheaval. World Devil City is a landscape defined by Yadang formations, a type of terrain shaped by wind and water erosion over millions of years. Around 100 million years ago, this harsh and barren land was once a vast freshwater lake where dinosaurs lived and thrived. The rock structures visible today resemble the Egyptian Sphinx, medieval castles, or massive warships, yet every shape is the result of wind and sand with no human construction involved. Through millions of years of natural sandblasting, nature has carved a stone labyrinth covering roughly 162 square miles. The area is not silent, as wind rushing through eroded rock cavities bends and amplifies sound, turning the landscape into a giant instrument that produces eerie roars, cries, and haunting echoes. Aizhai Bridge spans Dehang Canyon near Jiuzhaigou City in Hunan Province, China, suspended between steep mountain walls, high above the valley floor. Before the bridge was built, crossing the valley took more than 30 minutes along dangerous mountain roads, but today, the same journey takes only about 1 minute. Unlike most bridges longer than half a mile that rely on massive pillars anchored into the ground, Aizhai hangs entirely in midair, with its structure weighing thousands of tons, supported by just two main suspension cables stretched between mountain peaks. Construction at this height was compared to a prolonged aerial stunt lasting 4 years, as steel segments weighing hundreds of tons had to be lifted into position by helicopter with no ground support available. The bridge is painted a vivid red-orange, not for decoration alone, but to ensure it remains clearly visible through the dense fog that often blankets the mountains of Hunan. Nangsan ancient town was once one of the wealthiest towns in China during the Qing dynasty, built on the immense profits of the silk trade. At its peak, the combined fortunes of local clans were estimated to exceed the imperial treasury, earning Nangsan a reputation as the Silicon Valley of the 19th century silk industry. Along the canals, ancient stone bridges were assembled with such precision that no cement or binding material was required, yet they have endured centuries of water pressure and time. When reflected on the still surface below the arch of each bridge and its mirror image form a near-perfect circle. Another defining structure is the 100-room complex, a continuous row of exactly 100 connected houses, stretching for hundreds of feet along the canal, all sheltered by a shared covered walkway that allows passage across town without sun or rain. Ming Tombs, also known as the 13 Tombs, form one of the largest and best preserved imperial burial complexes in China, serving as the resting place of 13 Ming Dynasty emperors from the 14th to the 17th century. Lining the Spirit Way are 24 monumental stone animals shown standing or kneeling, arranged as a silent stone army guarding the eternal rest of the emperors. Along the main ritual axis stands the Great Red Gate, marking the boundary between the living world and the realm of the dead, where all visitors, including high officials, were required to dismount and proceed on foot as a sign of respect. At the ceremonial center rests the Shengde Divine Merit Stele, mounted on a massive stone tortoise known as Bixi, with the combined structure weighing approximately 300 tons. How many places around the world have you traveled? And how many of nature's hidden mysteries have you truly discovered? There are places where the landscape looks as if it were painted by human hands, yet every form and color is shaped only by time, climate, and the natural forces of the earth. In other places, the colors of nature seem to spread across entire villages and buildings, blending architecture with the surrounding landscape in ways that feel almost magical. Far from crowded cities, these regions reveal remarkable landscapes that remain little known to the wider world. Join us as we explore some of the most enchanted places on Earth, destinations whose beauty makes them places people dream of visiting at least once in their lifetime. Kaunas tombs of the kings are regarded as the greatest hanging necropolis of ancient Korea, a royal burial complex carved directly into sheer limestone cliffs that challenge the limits of ancient engineering. The entire series of monumental tombs was hand-cut into solid limestone, transforming the mountainside into a vast, suspended architectural facade. The largest tomb was left unfinished for about 2,400 years, preserving chisel marks as if the builders had set down their tools only moments ago. To create more than 150 tombs, stoneworkers suspended themselves on ropes and removed thousands of tons of hard rock using only manual labor. Many chambers included false walls and hidden recesses designed to mislead grave robbers, although most valuables were eventually taken over the centuries. Local legend describes the ancient Kaunas people as having pale bluish skin caused by marshland malaria, leading early pilgrims to believe this cliffside city belonged to beings not of the human world. Sveti Stefan is a one-of-a-kind hotel island in the world, originally a 15th century fortress that has been transformed into an ultra-luxury resort reserved for billionaires and A-list celebrities. Although it is a rocky island, nature created a narrow, sandy tombolo linking it to the mainland, forming the only natural access route. The island covers only about 129,000 square feet, yet it contains both natural and artificial pink sand beaches packed into an extremely limited area. Historical records state that the island was built using treasure taken from defeated Ottoman ships, beginning as a fortress of 12 houses for 12 clans, surrounded by arrow slits and cannon positions. In the 1950s, the government relocated roughly 400 residents to the mainland to convert the site into a sealed tourism enclave for Hollywood stars and the global elite. Chefchaouen is the only city in the world fully covered in deep ocean blue, from the buildings and alleys to the stairs, creating a sea on land. Located at an altitude of nearly 600 meters in the arid Rif Mountains, the city is a labyrinth with thousands of narrow alleys and steep stairs. Everything in the Medina area is blue, from the wall's doors and stairs to the streets, disorienting visitors with the uniformity of color. To maintain this surreal hue under the scorching heat of North Africa, tens of thousands of residents must repaint the entire city by hand every year. Amidst this monochromatic blue space, thousands of local cats with golden fur and amber eyes appear at every corner, creating eerie, contrasting highlights. No historical document confirms why the city is blue, but some say it represents the color of heaven. Others claim it's to repel mosquitoes, or simply to soothe the intense heat of Morocco. Spina Longa is a bizarre, artificial island off the coast of Greece, once an impregnable military fortress before becoming the last leper colony in Europe. To create this unbreakable fortress, 16th century Venetians used human labor to completely separate a massive limestone block from the mainland, turning it into a stone ship isolated in the sea. For 54 years, from 1903 to 1957, Spina Longa served as a prison for thousands of people suffering from leprosy, stripped of their citizenship, and considered legally dead. The fortress was so well defended that when the entire island of Crete fell, Spina Longa stood alone for an additional 46 years against the Ottoman Empire. Despite being abandoned, the residents built their own cinema school, newspaper office, and electricity system with power even before many larger cities on the mainland. Panagia Hozoviotissa is the second oldest monastery in Greece, a singular hanging wonder anchored directly into a sheer cliff on the island of Amorgos at an elevation of about 984 feet above the Aegean Sea. The 8-story structure defies logic with a length of roughly 131 feet, while sections of its width narrow to only about 16 feet, merging almost seamlessly with the vertical rock face. The monastery has remained continuously active for nearly 1,000 years and is currently maintained by only 3 monks living in isolation amid ocean winds and extreme terrain. According to tradition, the entire structure was built to protect a sacred icon believed to have drifted from Palestine aboard an unmanned vessel to escape destruction. To reach the monastery, visitors must climb more than 300 steep stone steps, leading to a low doorway that forces everyone to bow upon entry. An iron chisel, left by an 11th century builder, remained embedded in the cliff and suspended at this height for over 900 years, before falling in the year 1956. Trigrad Gorge, known as the Marble Fortress, is one of the most spectacular geological formations on Earth, with sheer cliffs rising over 350 feet. The gorge is carved entirely from pure marble, with vertical cliffs pressing tightly together to form a giant fissure. Scientists conducted dye tests to trace the river's flow, revealing that although the water vanishes and reappears just 500 meters apart on the map, it takes more than 90 minutes for the water to travel through this section. Hidden beneath the gorge lies the Hall of Thunder, a massive underground cavern that could house an entire cathedral with a 42-meter underground waterfall cascading into a dim space. The area is also home to the Habelia rhodopensis, a plant that can dehydrate completely and then miraculously revive after years with just a drop of water. Trigrad Gorge is infamous for the mysterious disappearance of 2 professional divers in 1970, and since then all attempts to explore the underground water system have been prohibited. Ovich Fortress is often described as a floating stone fleet on land positioned atop a massive rock plateau surrounded by sheer vertical cliffs on all sides. A wooden bridge, stretching about 492 feet, spans open air, connecting 2 vertical rock faces and forming the only access suspended above a chasm dozens of feet deep. The entire fortress functions as an isolated stone island, with defensive walls running along the cliff edges without any modern foundation systems. Ancient builders drilled through solid limestone to create a water well nearly 259 feet deep, equivalent to a 25-story building, ensuring survival during prolonged sieges. The plateau serves as habitat for the rare Egyptian vulture, which circles rock niches and dark caves once used as medieval prison chambers. Access from the town requires climbing a spiral staircase of metal and wood, with 111 steps anchored directly into the vertical cliff. Sultan Amir Ahmad Bathhouse is known as the underground palace of lenses, a rare Persian architectural masterpiece where light is treated as a structural element rather than decoration. Built in the 16th century under the Safavid dynasty, the complex covers more than 10,000 square feet and is located entirely below ground to stabilize temperature and shield the interior from the harsh desert climate of Kashan. Although it functioned as a public bathhouse, the site included highly luxurious sections with ornate seating and decoration reserved exclusively for nobles and visiting royalty. Only dozens of low brick domes rise above the surface, each fitted with thousands of convex glass lenses designed to capture and channel sunlight into the deep interior spaces. These hunter-eye lenses on the ceilings create visible columns of light that pass through humid air and illuminate turquoise tiled walls inside the bath chambers. Known as the Emerald of the Balkans Lake, Ramsko possesses a coastline so impossibly intricate that it creates surreal geometric shapes the human eye can barely process. Tucked inside a massive sinkhole, surrounded by steep limestone peaks, this structure features narrow strips of land stretching thousands of feet, like giant tentacles piercing through turquoise waters over 300 feet deep. The most unbelievable phenomenon is its magical shape-shifting ability during water fluctuations, where a massive peninsula can transform into an isolated island or reveal hidden walking paths at the bottom of the deep lake in just a few dry weeks. This is the only place on Earth where you can paddle a boat directly over the rooftops of ancestors gliding above former gardens and graves, now permanently entombed under billions of gallons of water. During years of record low water levels, the landscape turns into a ghost world as the ruins of thousands of homes from 1968 emerge from the cracked lake bed. Blue Eye, also known as Syria Calter, is hidden within a dense natural forest and is essentially a deep spring pool where groundwater continuously erupts from underground under very high pressure. The name Blue Eye comes from the pool's color structure, with a dark blue central zone surrounded by shallower turquoise water, forming a shape resembling an eye when viewed from above. To this day, the exact depth of the spring remains unknown, as professional divers have attempted to descend beyond about 164 feet, but were stopped by the upward force of the water flow. Groundwater rises to the surface at a high discharge rate, creating constant swirling motion and ripples at the center of the pool. When an object is dropped into the central opening, the strong upward current often forces it back to the surface after only a few seconds. This behavior indicates that the underground flow intensity is sufficient to counteract gravitational force acting on descending objects. Pobiti Kamani is the only natural desert in Bulgaria famous for its title as the Museum of Hollow Stones, one of the world's most unique geological wonders. The stone columns here are not solid rocks, but massive hollow tubes filled with fine sand inside, rising up to about 23 feet, standing tall in the arid landscape. The complex spans tens of square kilometers, containing thousands of stone columns aged about 50 million years, shaped by wind and water erosion. These columns come in various shapes, from those resembling camels to massive mushroom-like formations, and even some grouped together resembling a family standing side by side. At the center, a circle made of small stone slabs forms a mysterious space where it is said that wishes made while standing inside will come true. The area is also known as the Land of Eternal Energy, where strange magnetic phenomena cause compasses to spin wildly, transforming it into a time portal. The Neretva River holds the title as the coldest river on Earth, with an ethereal turquoise color that winds through the heart of Europe. The river has carved its way through massive limestone mountain ranges, forming deep gorges up to 1,200 meters, creating a secluded canyon system. The water temperature hovers around 45 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing even as it flows through areas experiencing Mediterranean heat, reaching 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The color of the Neretva is not the usual blue, but a vibrant emerald green, thanks to the river's crystal-clear water that allows visibility down to the riverbed several dozen feet below. This is the only place on Earth where the rare softmouth salmon lives, and about a quarter of Europe's fish species can be found in the river's basin. Local youths dive from a height of about 78 feet, equivalent to an 8-story building, into the freezing, fast-moving waters of the Neretva. The National Library of Kosovo is an architectural monster, known as one of the most bizarre buildings in the world, frequently topping the lists of both the ugliest and most impressive structures. The roof of the building is covered by 99 white domes of varying sizes, resembling giant pills or eggs of some unknown creature. The contrast of light, with hundreds of skylights on the roof, casting vertical beams of light into the interior, transforms the space into a vibrant light matrix. Architect Andrija Mutanjakovic created a striking distortion of proportions by magnifying the shape of the local Ples hat into massive concrete structures. Few know that this futuristic fortress-like structure was once used as a military command center and refugee camp during wartime, adding a haunting chapter to its history. Clinging defiantly to a sheer cliff at 900 meters high, Ostrog Monastery appears more like an impossible illusion suspended in the sky than a structure built by humans. Right on the hard, rocky balcony, a grapevine has lived and borne fruit for centuries, despite having no soil to grow, in which locals believe is a miracle and visitors cannot explain. During World War II, a Nazi bomb hit the monastery, but strangely, it did not explode and instead broke in half. So Ostrog Monastery remains intact to this day. The monks here did not build walls, but used the cave's rock face as the walls, painting directly onto the stone and creating narrow, deep spaces that make visitors feel like they are entering the heart of a mountain. The path leading up to Ostrog Monastery is steep with deep cliffs on both sides. Yet barefoot pilgrims still make the journey every year, creating a scene that many find hard to believe belongs to the 21st century. Himara is known as the city of vertical cliffs, where thousand-year-old stone villages perch on high mountain ridges overlooking the deep blue waters of the Ionian Sea. Just off the shoreline, scientists have discovered icy freshwater springs gushing from the seabed underground rivers, emerging where only salt water was expected. The landscape was formed by violent collisions between the Ceronian Mountains and the sea, producing white limestone walls over 6,500 feet tall, plunging directly into crystal clear water. Himara enjoys more than 300 sunny days each year and is home to olive trees that have survived since the Middle Ages, some over 1,000 years old. During the Cold War, the region became an impenetrable fortress lined with thousands of concrete bunkers and a secret submarine base carved deep into the rock. Locals maintain a cultural quirk of nodding to say no and shaking their heads to say yes, living in stone houses that have endured for more than 3,500 years. Would you believe that an ancient bridge was once submerged underwater, then dismantled stone by stone and moved 5 kilometers away to be reborn? That is Arslanagic, a miraculous mobile masterpiece in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Before being rescued, the bridge lay beneath a man-made reservoir for over a year, while its stone arches still mirrored perfectly on the glass, like surface of the Trigrad River. Built in the 16th century, without modern cement, Ottoman engineers used grooved stones, iron rods, and molten lead to fuse the massive blocks strong enough to withstand natural disasters and wartime explosives. Despite its brilliance, Arslanagic was denied World Heritage status because it no longer stands in its original location and had to give up the highest honor an ancient structure can receive in order to survive today. Blau Felzen is a unique green desert where massive granite boulders are coated in brilliant ocean blue, creating an unbelievable sight. The rocks here, originally ancient pink granite, have been eroded over millions of years into rounded shapes stacking on top of each other like alien eggs. To make this madness a reality, 18 tons of paint were used enough to cover the massive rocks like towering buildings. What is astonishing is that this large-scale defiling of nature was officially approved by King Hassan II of Morocco, giving support to a seemingly crazy and absurd idea. Hattusha is the site where the Treaty of Kadesh, the first peace treaty in human history, was preserved, and it is also known as a capital of records. The city was built entirely from massive stones, interlocked without mortar, perched on steep cliffs and rugged plateaus at an elevation of over 3,000 feet. An enigmatic nephrite block, known as the Green Stone, stands alone in the ancient temple, emitting a strange green hue that no scientist has yet been able to explain its origin or purpose. Hattusha was protected by a double wall system extending over 5 miles with more than 100 watchtowers, and a massive archive containing over 30,000 clay tablets recording the knowledge of this mighty civilization. The people of Hattusha worshipped over 1,000 gods, with legendary creatures such as the Sphinx and giant stone lions carved into the city gates, guarding the dimensions of existence. At the peak of its power, the entire population of Hattusha mysteriously vanished, leaving behind a magnificent but empty capital with no trace of war or disaster. The source of the Cetina River in Croatia is a karst sinkhole shaped like a massive deep blue eye, stunning the world and earning it the name the Eye of the Earth. Professional divers have reached depths of about 155 meters, equivalent to a 50-story building, yet the bottom remains undiscovered. It's not a lake, but a bottomless blue abyss that extends deep into the earth, where groundwater is pushed upward from deep limestone layers under extreme pressure. Its surface appears calm and mirror-like, but beneath it lies a mystical water maze with absolute transparency. The water temperature remains a constant 45 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, regardless of the scorching summer heat, causing anyone who touches it to feel an immediate shock, as if frozen. Right at the edge of this bottomless abyss stands an ancient church from the 9th century, a historical witness guarding the gateway to the Earth's core. Peperikon is a legendary stone city located in Bulgaria, often referred to as the Machu Picchu of Europe, and recognized as the largest monolithic stone architectural complex on the Balkan Peninsula. The site is recorded as one of the world's oldest, continuously inhabited locations, with evidence of settlement beginning in the Neolithic period around 5,000 years before Christ. Instead of brick or mortar construction, the entire urban layout, including multi-level palaces, streets, and drainage systems, was carved directly into a massive rock formation. The complex includes a sanctuary dedicated to Dionysus, regarded as one of the two major prophetic centers of the ancient world, where divination rituals were performed on stone altars. Continuous occupation at Peperikon extends for more than 8,000 years and spans at least 5 distinct civilizations from the Neolithic era through the Middle Ages. Una National Park is known as the Sanctuary of Silver Waterfalls in Bosnia and Herzegovina, home to Europe's purest river, with a brilliant emerald green color so vivid it seems surreal. The waterfall cascade structure stretches over 2,600 feet, entirely formed by giant freshwater coral reefs, a living stone that self-grows and forms eternal water walls. The Una River maintains its emerald green color so clear that the bottom can be seen even at depths of dozens of feet. The power of nature at Una is evident in the massive waterfalls that rise up to 80 feet high, with a water flow of hundreds of cubic meters per second. It is also home to the blind salamander species, Olm, known as the Child of Dragons, capable of fasting for up to 10 years and living over a century. Locals still use medieval washing machines, taking advantage of the natural whirlpools of the falls to wash giant carpets in just minutes without electricity. The Buzludzha monument is known for its brutalist architectural style and its turbulent history, having been inaugurated in 1981 as a state headquarters and memorial in Bulgaria. After the political system changed in 1989, the structure was abandoned and rapidly deteriorated due to the absence of maintenance. To construct the building, the entire mountain summit, at an elevation of about 4,728 feet, was leveled using explosives, and more than 70,000 tons of concrete were transported to the site to form a disc-like structure. Construction lasted 7 years from 1974 to 1981 and involved over 6,000 engineers, artists, and soldiers, with much of the funding coming from public contributions through the purchase of special postage stamps. On the adjacent tower, rising about 230 feet, are two large red stars made of ruby crystal glass, imported from the Soviet Union, which once emitted light visible from a distance of roughly 19 miles. Kravice Waterfall in Bosnia and Herzegovina is an impossible oasis located in the heart of the Balkans, where the Trigrad River unexpectedly explodes into a 120-meter wide arc of water. The entire spectacle is formed from tufa, a living limestone that grows and forms magical stalactites beneath the waterfall. The Trigrad River, which feeds the waterfall, follows a strange hydrological system, continuously sinking underground and resurfacing, changing its name 8 times along its length. Kravice consists of 20 separate waterfalls falling from a height of 25 meters into a perfect turquoise lake, creating a deep, booming sound that can shake the earth within a radius of hundreds of meters during flood season. The ecosystem here is an impregnable world, with ancient ferns and limestone caves where time seems to stand still. A curious phenomenon occurs as moss and algae growing on the surface of the waterfall not only decorate it, but also help accumulate more tufa, promoting the limestone precipitation process beneath them. Crveno Jezero is a massive karst sinkhole on Earth's surface, ranked among the deepest and most dramatic chasms on the planet, with an almost perfectly cylindrical form. The lake is enclosed by sheer cliffs, rising over 787 feet, stained red by iron oxide surrounding a deep blue body of water, whose bottom lies below sea level. With a total depth of roughly 1,739 feet, this natural skylight could fully submerge Western Europe's tallest skyscraper and ranks among the continent's deepest depressions. In the year 2017, diver Frederick Swiaczynski reached the bottom for the first time and documented a vast underwater cave system connecting to rivers tens of miles away. Legzira is a geological sanctuary located in southern Morocco, home to gigantic red sandstone arches, hailed as natural sculptural masterpieces of nature. Stretching over 8 miles of pristine coastline, these arches stood for millions of years until one of the two eternal symbols collapsed completely in 2016, leaving behind an astonishing gap. The remaining arch resembles the leg of a giant elephant stepping into the sea, and both locals and visitors commonly refer to it by this familiar name. The paths through the arches only reveal themselves during low tide, making this place a world accessible only at the ocean's mercy. Bam Citadel, also known as Argi Bam, is considered the largest sandcastle on Earth, a massive ancient mud brick fortress rising from the arid deserts of Iran. The entire earthen city was built solely from mud straw and palm trunks, creating a uniform structure in both material and color. Despite being made from fragile natural elements, the site survived for over 2,500 years, enduring violent sandstorms and summer heat, reaching 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Covering about 44 acres and protected by 38 watchtowers, Bam Citadel once housed more than 10,000 residents within a fully developed urban system. After the devastating earthquake of 2003 that nearly leveled the site, its reconstruction using traditional earthen techniques turned Bam into a symbol of seemingly impossible recovery. The Lut Desert in Iran is considered the most extreme region on the planet, holding the highest land surface temperatures ever recorded on Earth by satellite measurements. The area is defined by the Kalut's massive ridges of wind-eroded mudstone sculpted over thousands of years into vertical formations resembling natural skyscrapers. Some sand dunes here reach heights of up to 980 feet, ranking among the tallest dunes on Earth and creating constantly shifting desert terrain. The name Dasht-e-Lut translates to empty plain in Persian, reflecting the severe aridity and near absence of biological activity. In the desert core, conditions are considered nearly sterile, where even microbial life struggles to survive due to extreme heat and dryness. Isk Lake is known as the reborn jewel of the Tian Shan Mountains, a lake distinguished by rare turquoise tones that shift with light conditions. The lake formed around 10,000 years ago after a massive geological collapse when half of a mountain fell and created a natural dam hundreds of feet high. Fine mineral particles carried by glacial streams cause the watercolor to change from bright neon blue to muted silver gray within hours as sunlight and cloud cover vary. In 1963, a catastrophic mudflow erased the lake from maps in a single afternoon before large-scale engineering efforts restored it from debris. Constantine is known as the City of Hanging Bridges, a rare ancient city built entirely on a massive limestone rock, isolated from the surrounding land by a sheer, deep gorge. The city is encircled by the Rummel Gorge, where the river has eroded limestone over millions of years, forming a natural fortress with cliff walls reaching about 656 feet in height. Urban circulation here depends directly on bridges spanning the chasm, with a total of 8 main bridges linking the rocky city core to surrounding areas. Several bridges are reserved for pedestrians and exhibit strong movement during high winds, requiring residents to routinely adapt to travel at extreme elevation. Sveti Bridge, inaugurated in April 1912, was once the highest bridge in the world, suspended at roughly 574 feet and supported by steel cable bundles anchored into the limestone bedrock. Trigrad Bridge is composed of 27 large stone arches stacked along the gorge edge, while directly below the modern bridges, the Ruyi River forms waterfalls plunging into the canyon. Zvernec Island is a small island located in the Nata Lagoon, near the city of Vlore in Albania, forming a space clearly separated from the surrounding coastal tourism activity. The defining feature of the island is its access route via a wooden bridge measuring about 886 feet, allowing direct passage from the mainland without the use of boats. Although the island covers only about 22 acres, it supports a dense pine forest ecosystem and contains a Byzantine monastery dating back more than 800 years. The distance to the tourist city of Vlore is only a few miles yet. After crossing the bridge, urban noise and activity are largely absent. Inside the monastery structure are burial chambers associated with historical figures connected to the island, indicating its long-standing religious and residential significance. In the surrounding lagoon environment, large flocks of flamingos dominate the wildlife presence and represent the most prominent animal population in the area. Is the world ignoring China, while some of the most unreal landscapes on Earth remain hidden in plain sight? Places so extreme they look computer-generated, yet exist far beyond cities, roads, and familiar maps. Mountains twist, stone rises against gravity, and entire regions defy the rules we think nature must follow. These are not legends, not myths, and not visual effects. This is unseen China, where wonders that don't seem real exist anyway. The village of Hutuan on Shengshan Island is considered one of the planet's strangest places, where nature has completely reclaimed the human habitat, turning every house into a maze draped in green vines. Once home to over 2,000 residents in a thriving fishing community, the area was abandoned in the 1990s and gradually consumed by dense, uncontrolled vegetation. Unlike ghost towns ruined by war or drought, Hutuan exhibits a rare zombie status, where the boundary between human civilization and untamed nature has been entirely erased. What happens when you step into a house abandoned for 3 decades in Hutuan? Many homes still contain their original beds. Dining tables and cabinets from the 1990s, now overgrown with moss and vines that creep through shattered windows. Amid the overgrown ruins lives a man named Chu, age 65, who chose to stay with his wife in their original home and now serves as the village's living witness. After Hutuan's photos went viral in 2015, Mr. Chu began welcoming tourists, cooking seafood, and selling drinks as the sole guide to this devoured village. Instead of blasting mountains or tunneling underground, China adopted a non-traditional solution by building the Yongwu Road directly across the surface of Lake Poyang, the country's largest freshwater lake, defying standard engineering logic. To ensure perfect surface stability, the project integrates floating pontoons and underwater supports, while preserving the delicate ecosystem of the surrounding migratory bird sanctuary. Remarkably, when lake levels rise to 61 feet, the entire road becomes submerged, creating the surreal illusion of cars gliding like boats across an endless sea. Stretching over 3.1 miles, every technical element from elevation to drainage was precisely engineered to maintain year-round operability even during flood season. Serving as the sole roadway link to the 2,200-year-old ancient town of Wucheng, this daring design ensures lifeline access to a once isolated region. On its opening day, over 8,000 vehicles converge simultaneously, turning the structure into a global sensation for both engineering audacity and visual wonder. Hidden deep in the arid Kaidam Basin, Emerald Lake is not a pure natural wonder, but an industrial relic formed from abandoned mineral pits once operated by the Detian chemical plant and later filled by groundwater and brine. How can an industrial site become a global visual phenomenon? The answer lies in the surreal hues of its salt ponds, where extremely high concentrations of lithium, potassium, and magnesium produce colors ranging from Tiffany blue to emerald green and amber gold, earning it the nickname God's Palette. The area also features rare geological traits such as deep blue holes and heart-shaped lakes scattered among wind-eroded Yadan landforms shaped over millions of years. With intense salinity and a thick white salt crust at the bottom, the lake surface mirrors the sky and nearby snow peaks, creating a sky mirror effect far beyond that of ordinary salt flats. Despite its sparkling beauty, the lake contains so much salt that it could hypothetically poison over 343 billion people if consumed, turning it into a deadly oasis disguised as paradise. La Ronga appears like a sea of red, with thousands of tiny wooden homes packed tightly across the hill's sides, forming a massive living mosaic deep in a remote mountain valley. At an extreme altitude of nearly 13,000 feet, where oxygen is scarce and breathing becomes a challenge, every inhale is a testament to the enduring power of spiritual devotion. How did a place that began in 1980 with just 10 disciples become the world's largest Buddhist academy? The answer lies in decades of grassroots effort, as monks and nuns used their own savings and hands to build each red wooden home. Even the most senior scholars, known as Khenpos, live in the same two-room wooden huts as the students, maintaining a unique flat hierarchy with no distinction in living conditions. This is a strictly vegan city, where meat, alcohol, and tobacco are entirely forbidden, even for visitors, preserving the valley's atmosphere of absolute purity. What visitors remember most is the synchronized chanting of tens of thousands of voices echoing across the valley from dawn until dusk, creating a meditative symphony found nowhere else on Earth. Blue tears is the name given to a blue bioluminescent phenomenon appearing in coastal waters around Pingtan Island, where dark seawater lights up instantly when disturbed. The glow is produced by marine plankton that emit light under physical stimulation, such as waves, hand movement, or human footsteps in shallow water. Blue tears can only be observed in near total darkness because even minimal artificial light is enough to overwhelm the faint bioluminescent signal. The phenomenon does not occur year-round and typically peaks from April through August, controlled by seawater temperature, ocean currents, and plankton density. Dongchuan Red Land is one of the largest and most distinctive red soil landscapes in the world, often ranked just behind the famous Redlands of Brazil. Until the mid-1990s, the area remained largely isolated and unknown before Chinese photographers revealed its striking scenery to a wider audience. The intense red color here is not typical farmland soil, but the result of extremely high concentrations of iron and aluminum oxidized over millions of years. Amid this vast sea of crimson terrain, a single ancient tree can sometimes be seen standing alone atop a hill, creating a powerful visual contrast. This unusual landscape has since become a regular presence in top 10 lists of China's most photogenic locations featured by international photography platforms and magazines. Chagan Lake is one of the largest freshwater lakes in China, known for the winter fishing ritual where massive nets haul up hundreds of tons of fish at once from a frozen surface. Each net stretches roughly 1.2 miles beneath thick ice and is pulled entirely by horsepower, with giant horses serving as the only engines instead of modern machinery. Every winter, thousands of people step onto the ice to repeat a fishing method dating back to the Liao dynasty around 900 AD. Hundreds of ice holes are drilled with precise spacing to encircle fish schools beneath the vast lake, forming a harvesting system that appears almost geological. During only a few festival weeks, over 2 million pounds of fish are harvested without depletion, as the lake's ecosystem remains balanced through natural regeneration in extreme winter conditions. Tarim Populus Euphratica Forest is an ancient grove where trees survive for thousands of years in extreme aridity, with annual rainfall below 2 inches and sandstorms capable of burying entire ecosystems. After dying, these trees do not decay, but remain standing for roughly 1,000 more years, like silver skeletons across the desert horizon. The forest borders the Taklamakan Desert, nicknamed the Sea of Death, the second largest shifting sand desert on Earth, with dunes constantly reshaped by wind. Amid one of the driest regions on the planet, mirror-like lakes appear reflecting golden canopies from tiny oases surrounded by endless dunes. Water in the Tarim Basin is so saline that most plants die immediately, but these poplars absorb the brine filter salt through their trunks and expel it as a survival mechanism. Golden crowns curve around the shoreline, forming fluid shapes on the sand where life and decay coexist in the silhouette of an ancient forest. Qiantang Lake is a massive artificial reservoir formed when a valley spanning hundreds of square miles was completely flooded to serve a nationally strategic hydroelectric project. Seen from above, 1,078 forested islands rise from turquoise water, creating a fragmented spatial structure rarely found in natural lake systems. A distinct golden shoreline band appears at the base of each island, produced by exposed soil and rock after water levels stabilized, directly separating forest cover from open water. In 1959, the government deliberately submerged the entire valley, including 2 ancient cities and 27 towns, solely to obtain electricity. It is classified as China's cleanest freshwater source, with purity high enough to be regarded as a long-term, global-scale drinking water reserve. Yarden landform is a rare desert terrain shaped by millions of years of wind erosion, producing thousands of rock formations resembling fortresses, warships, or primitive creatures. Many areas show these formations arranged in long parallel rows, appearing like a massive fleet frozen within a barren landscape. Intense red soil, the complete absence of vegetation, and heavily eroded stone pillars create a surface closely matching the physical characteristics of Mars. Golden clay formations rise vertically from vivid blue lakes within the desert, a phenomenon rarely observed under prolonged arid conditions. Certain lakes sit inside circular geological structures, displaying a deep matcha green color and eye-like shapes when viewed from above. During winter, when air temperatures drop below -4 degrees Fahrenheit, these lakes remain unfrozen due to extremely high salinity. Red Beach in Panjin is globally known for the seasonal color shifts of Suaeda salsa, a salt-tolerant plant that acts as a natural color filter across a vast marsh ecosystem. This is a beach without sand, where the entire surface is saline mud covered by billions of tiny plants that turn the land into a living red carpet. The color change is not a normal leaf transition, but a survival-driven chemical reaction that causes roughly 51 square miles to flare like an ocean of fire at peak intensity. Within this dark red expanse stands a single wooden house, isolated in a crimson sea where the ground is not solid earth, but a living surface no human foot can ever touch. Because the marsh is unstable and highly dangerous, people move only along wooden walkways, which from above resemble biological channels running through a massive living system. The red reaches maximum intensity for only about 20 to 30 days from September to early October, and arriving outside this window makes the phenomenon almost vanish. The Hulenbue grassland covers an area of about 36,000 square miles, larger than the entire territory of Portugal or Hungary, placing a single grassland in China on the scale of a sovereign European country. The Morigeli River, crossing the plain, is recorded by geologists as the most sinuous river in the world, as the almost perfectly flat terrain suppresses straight flow and forces the water into countless tight bends over short distances. Each year, Hulunbuir produces millions of tons of fresh grass, sufficient to sustain more than 10 million livestock at the same time across an uninterrupted open landscape. This grazing scale is so vast that Earth observation satellites can detect shifts in grassland color following the movement patterns of large herds. Historically, Hulunbuir also functioned as a natural military testing ground, where nomadic powers, such as the Khitan and Mongol empires, developed cavalry forces capable of unprecedented mobility enabled by flat terrain and abundant resources. Zhangjiajie Grand Canyon Glass Bridge held the title of the longest and highest glass pedestrian bridge in the world when it opened in 2016. Built to serve visitors in the Grand Canyon area. The bridge stretches across a canyon nearly 1,000 feet deep, directly connecting two vertical cliff faces with no support pillars beneath. Beyond walking, it is also home to the world's highest public bungee jump with a drop of about 935 feet. To demonstrate safety, officials invited 30 volunteers to strike the glass repeatedly with sledgehammers and later drove a fully loaded SUV across panels that had already cracked to prove the structure could still bear extreme weight. In the early morning or late afternoon, thick fog fills the canyon, making the bridge almost invisible, leaving only the sight of people appearing to float in mid-air. The karst sinkhole system is a geological structure eroded over millions of years, where massive sinkholes and caves connect to form a three-dimensional network deep beneath limestone mountains. Over 650 feet above the river lies a giant stone arch that pierces through solid mountain, wide enough for a small aircraft to fly through without touching the walls. Between April and September, sunlight passes through a skylight sinkhole and creates a colossal beam that shoots straight down into the underground river like a natural laser. Hidden within this system is a chamber recognized as the largest cave room on Earth, capable of housing dozens of Boeing jetliners or an entire football stadium with room to spare. On clear days, the water remains emerald green. But after a single heavy rain, it can suddenly turn bright red or amber orange due to upstream mineral runoff. Elephant Trunk Hill is the most recognizable symbol of Guilin, famous for its natural shape resembling a giant elephant bending down to drink water by the riverbank. In nature, limestone erosion commonly creates holes in rock, but erosion precise enough to form a long trunk, a solid body, and an opening positioned like an elephant's eye is an extremely low mathematical probability. Few people realize that inside the hill lies a cool cave system maintained year-round and currently used to store thousands of gallons of Guilin's traditional rice wine. During full moon nights, reflections from the river surface and the hollowed rock create an optical effect where 3 moons can be seen at the same time from this single location. In Huping, China, the word Tiankeng refers to giant karst sinkholes, often compared to heavenly pits, where the landscape drops into vertical chasms among forested mountains. Unlike typical sinkholes formed by underground caves collapsing from below, Huping is the only known cluster on Earth created entirely by rainfall erosion from above an unprecedented geological phenomenon. Within an area of roughly 9 square miles, 5 interconnected sinkholes form a hole within a hole structure resembling massive skylights carved into the limestone terrain. Ruyi Bridge is a modern pedestrian bridge in China, identified by its continuously curved form and its direct suspension above a deep canyon, differing completely from conventional straight bridge designs. The bridge is constructed at a height of approximately 460 feet above the canyon floor, equivalent to a structure over 40 stories tall, placing the entire system in strong wind and steep terrain conditions. Most of the walking surface is made of transparent tempered glass, allowing direct visibility to the canyon floor and clearly exposing the vertical separation between the bridge and the ground. Because of its continuous curvature, the projected outline of the bridge changes with viewing angle, and no single geometric axis extends along its full length. This curvature also serves an engineering function, dispersing wind loads and reducing stress concentration across the steel framework under high-altitude conditions. Jiangxia landform in Chishui is one of the largest ancient red rock landscapes, where sandstone layers align in even horizontal bands resembling a geological blueprint. On the near barren rock walls, vegetation grows directly from stone and survives by absorbing moisture from the morning fog. Waterfalls over 230 feet high cascade straight down the face of red cliffs, stretching thousands of feet across, forming shimmering curtains of suspended water. It's estimated that more than 1,000 waterfalls, large and small, pour across the area, turning a typically arid rockscape into an unexpectedly lush ecosystem. On clear days, refracted sunlight creates floating rainbow rings in the air, a phenomenon locals revere as the Buddha's halo. Mount Jianglang is defined by three massive peaks rising vertically from the ground, standing parallel like stone bamboo shoots, or the Chinese character Chuan. This entire formation is the result of millions of years of natural weathering, fracturing, and erosion created without any human intervention or modification. The ascent is not a trail, but a series of steps carved directly into the rock face, reaching slopes close to 88 degrees and turning upward movement into a physical ordeal. Despite the sheer and barren cliffs, isolated ecosystems survive atop these towering stone columns, supporting rare plant species completely separated from the world below. Taining Jiangxia is described by geologists as a Jiangxia cave museum on a global scale, defined by an extreme concentration of caves and ultra-narrow canyons. The landscape contains more than 130 gorges and dozens of tight stone corridors with sections so narrow that an adult must hold their breath and tilt the body about 45 degrees to pass. Inside a massive inverted triangular cave, the ancient Ganlu temple stands supported by a single wooden pillar rising dozens of feet, carrying the entire upper structure for centuries. The cliff faces are carved into tens of thousands of tiny cavities alongside giant hollows, forming a honeycomb-like surface suspended across vertical rock walls. These cliffs function as a vertical city, where hanging tombs set into rock niches preserve burial sites dating back thousands of years. Mati Temple Grottoes is a complex of Buddhist caves and temples carved directly into red cliff faces in Gansu province. The site includes more than 70 caves and shrines spread across different sections of the mountain range, containing Buddha statues, relief carvings, and centuries-old murals. To reach the highest sanctuaries, ancient builders carved small holes into the rock to serve as handholds and footholds along the vertical surface. Access to the grotto's system remains limited to foot travel or horseback routes along the mountainside, with no direct road connection even in the 21st century. Enshi Grand Canyon is known as the Colorado of the East due to its vertically developed karst terrain, shaped over hundreds of millions of years of geological upheaval. A limestone pillar, over 490 feet tall and barely 13 feet wide at its narrowest point, stands alone in a deep chasm, as if pinned from the sky, yet it has withstood every earthquake. The mountain trail here is not anchored to any slope, but is directly bolted into vertically fractured rock faces with no footing to distribute weight. The suspended walkway hangs like a bridge without foundations, yet supports thousands of visitors daily. China also installed a giant escalator along the cliff to carry visitors from summit to valley, right where no mechanical system should even be possible. Furong Ancient Town in Hunan Province is considered one of China's most unique ancient settlements, not built along the riverbank like Fenghuang, but perched on a cliff where a massive waterfall plunges directly into the Yu River at its center. The entire town occupies the top of a waterfall, roughly 200 feet high and 130 feet wide, creating an almost illogical construction site by conventional architectural standards. Its stilted Jiuzhaigou houses are anchored to the limestone cliff by slender wooden pillars with foundations carved directly into the solid rock face by ancient builders. The environment maintains nearly 100% humidity year-round due to constant spray from the falls, yet wooden structures estimated at over 2,000 years old have not rotted. Jiangye-Dangxia landform is a rare, multicolored mountain system often regarded as one of the most surreal landscapes not only in China but across the world. The formations began taking shape more than 24 million years ago as layers of red sandstone and minerals were deposited, compressed, and folded by intense tectonic activity. Because mineral content and sedimentation rates changed over time, no two sections display exactly the same color patterns. What makes the site unusual is that its colors are not fixed and can shift noticeably within as little as 10 minutes, depending on the angle and strength of sunlight. After rainfall, when the rock surface remains wet, water deepens the hues and heightens contrast, making the entire landscape appear freshly painted. Fanjingshan Mushroom Stone is a natural rock formation known for its illogical mushroom-like shape, standing completely isolated amid steep mountain terrain and sheer slopes. The structure rises about 33 feet tall, carrying a massive cap weighing dozens of tons, suspended above a narrow supporting base that appears visually unstable. Mushroom stone is not a single solid block, but is formed from countless thin rock layers stacked together, creating a stratified structure similar to tightly pressed ancient pages. Reaching the area on foot, without cable transport, requires climbing more than 8,888 stone steps across steep gradients. Bengxi Water Cave is one of the largest flooded cave systems in China, known for a natural underground boat route stretching nearly 2 miles, considered the longest fully navigable cave waterway in the world. The water inside averages only about 5 feet deep, yet the ceiling remains high enough for people to drift for miles underground without contact, creating a sensation of empty space beneath the surface. The cave formed within limestone, estimated to be around 500 million years old, where massive stalactites and columns grow far beyond the scale typical of most cave systems. Constant humidity from the underground river causes stone surfaces to reflect light intensely, producing a continuous shimmering effect as boats move slowly through the chambers. Loping rapeseed flower fields are known as the largest sea of yellow flowers in the world, with vast canola fields stretching endlessly toward the horizon. In certain areas, the flowers are not planted on flat land, but arranged in spiral terraces shaped by karst sinkholes reaching depths of about 160 feet. While much of China still experiences late winter cold, the fields here bloom as early as February, making this one of the earliest spring landscapes in the region. Each year, billions of bees are transported from across the country, and their collective buzzing forms a deep, ambient sound that fills the entire valley. The spectacle remains at peak intensity for only about 21 to 30 days each year, giving Luoping the feeling of a mirage that appears only for those who arrive at the right moment. Huangshan is one of the most iconic mountain ranges in China, long serving as a central symbol in Chinese culture poetry and traditional landscape painting. Its pine trees grow directly from sheer rock cracks with unusual shapes, including the famous Yingke song, whose form resembles open arms welcoming visitors. Reaching the summits requires climbing more than 60,000 stone steps carved by hand into the mountainsides, making it one of the longest and steepest stairway systems in the world. Within a single view, snow-covered pine branches can appear above, while golden seas of cloud fill the valleys below under the light of sunset. Across history, Huangshan has inspired more than 20,000 poems and millions of ink paintings devoted to its peaks and mist-filled landscapes. Tianshan Mountain is known as the jewel of northeastern China, defined by granite terrain, fractured into thousands of sharp, freestanding peaks. The count of 999 peaks forms an extreme geological matrix resembling isolated stone blocks rather than a continuous mountain range rising above clouds. Within this system stands a peak about 230 feet tall, shaped like a seated Maitreya Buddha in a precise meditation posture. This figure was not carved by humans, but formed by wind, rain, and erosion over millions of years, sculpting facial features, shoulders, and posture with striking accuracy. Ancient temples and Taoist structures do not rest on flat ground, but emerge directly from cliff faces or balance on the narrowest pointed summits. When clouds flood the area, the 999 peaks appear as floating islands, replicating scenes once considered fictional in classical ink paintings. Mount Tai, also known as the Eastern Sacred Peak, ranks first among China's 5 sacred mountains and was recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987, directly linked to imperial authority throughout Chinese history. In the past, 72 emperors ascended the mountain to perform the Fengshan rites to heaven and earth, regarding it as the closest place to the celestial realm accessible to humans. The ascent follows a stone stairway of more than 7,200 steps, carved entirely by hand and extending from the base to an elevation of about 5,070 feet, once the only route without mechanical assistance. It is difficult to believe that the entire massive volume of stone was transported and installed solely by human labor along sheer rock faces. At the cloud-covered summit, the Bixia Temple complex clings to the edge of a steep cliff, built from stone and metal with roofs cast from dozens of tons of bronze to withstand powerful winds and lightning at extreme altitude. China holds a collection of natural wonders so strange that they seem unreal, yet remain grounded in physical reality. Across the country, landscapes form in ways that challenge expectation, shaped by vast spans of time, pressure, and powerful geological forces. Many of these places lie in remote regions, rarely seen, where mountains, valleys, and stone formations follow patterns unlike anywhere else on Earth. Join us as we explore Impossible China, a journey into unbelievable wonders that do not seem real, yet exist as measurable parts of our world. Qiantang River tidal bore is the largest rivermouth tidal wave on Earth, with peak crests rising to nearly 30 feet as ocean tides are forced upstream into a narrow channel. At maximum intensity, wave fronts from different directions collide head-on, forming X-shaped intersections or vertical water columns shooting into the air. Within seconds, the river surface splits into two states, one side remaining calm, while the other becomes a fast-moving wall of water. For more than 2,500 years of recorded Chinese history, from ancient imperial eras to the age of artificial intelligence, the boar appears at nearly the exact predicted time, driven by astronomical cycles. Around the 18th day of the 8th lunar month each year, over 170,000 people gather along the riverbanks for the traditional tidal observation festival. Before the boar arrives, all boats must be pulled ashore, because any vessel left behind can be overturned in as little as 3 seconds. Gaoyiling stands out with massive red rock ridges known as the Natural Great Wall, stretching for several miles like a colossal fortress sculpted by nature. Seen from above, the dragon-back terrain cuts sharply across vibrant blue lakes, making the entire scene resemble a sci-fi Mars landscape more than an earthly mountain. The most surreal feature is that while the surrounding area is lush with vegetation, all the rocky summits here remain bare and smooth, as if hand-polished by invisible tools. Some ridge sections are so narrow they barely fit a single human foot, with vertical cliffs on both sides plunging hundreds of feet down. One iconic peak juts out into the lake in the perfect shape of a giant lizard crawling down for a drink. For years, travelers have walked along this dragon's spine with no guardrails, no ropes, and absolutely no safety equipment. Ulan Lake lies deep within the Tenga Desert, where visitors travel across miles of shifting dunes in off-road vehicles to reach it. Seen from helicopters or satellite images, the lake forms an almost perfect heart shape, featuring symmetrical organic curves that are difficult to justify through conventional geological processes. Its blood-red waters result from salinity levels many times higher than seawater and extreme alkalinity, creating an environment where most organisms cannot survive. Yet specialized extremophile algae and bacteria thrive here, producing the vivid red coloration and demonstrating survival strategies comparable to those on distant planetary surfaces. Encircling the lake, a network of white salt channels resembles biological capillaries, and the mechanism behind this stark separation of red water and white mineral rims remains unresolved among geologists. Yuntai Mountain is one of the very few mountain systems in China shaped primarily by vertical development, with sheer cliffs rising roughly 600 to 900 feet and lacking any flared mountain base for load dispersion. Its red rock layers date back approximately 1.4 billion years, standing in stark contrast to a turquoise river flowing through the canyon, a color combination that defies normal geological expectation. Many cliff faces rise higher than a 20-story building, with slopes approaching a near 90-degree angle and no transitional incline, forming massive natural walls rather than conventional mountainsides. To sustain waterfalls during dry seasons, large water pipelines are concealed inside the natural rock mass, revealing a level of human control over hydrology rarely applied at this scale. In 2015, a glass panel on a walkway over 3,300 feet above ground fractured, yet visitor numbers continued to rise rather than decline afterward. Changbai is a rare shield volcano where the summit forms a massive depression at over 7,000 feet above sea level, completely inverting the usual expectation of what a mountain peak should be. At the top lies Heaven Lake, a deep body of water filling the crater, recognized as the highest crater lake in the world, accessible to visitors. In winter, temperatures can fall below -40 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze breath instantly, yet Changbai Waterfall continues pouring through terrain covered in permanent ice. Some visitors have come 10 times and still never seen the lake's surface, as the summit is almost always sealed by fog, clouds, and pressure layers, creating the illusion that it belongs to a different dimension. That white blanket covering the summit isn't snow, but pumice, residue from a super eruption in the year 946, ranked among the most powerful volcanic events in recorded human history. Jilin City stands out for its cold season landscape, typical of Northeast Asia, surrounded by mountains, frozen lakes, and the calm Songhua River flowing through its urban center. At the peak of winter, branches across the city become coated in shimmering white ice crystals, appearing as if snow has fallen, even though no snowflakes actually reach the ground. This is a rare, natural rime ice phenomenon that forms every year as water vapor freezes directly onto surfaces rather than falling as snow. The display lasts only a few hours, and when the sun rises, the entire ice layer collapses at once like a crystal rain and vanishes without a trace. While nearby lakes freeze solid, the Songhua River continues to flow through the city even at -22 degrees Fahrenheit, as deeper water and slow currents release enough warmth to supply vapor for ice crystallization. Chaka Salt Lake is a natural salt lake with over 3,000 years of extraction history, globally known for its ability to mirror the sky onto a perfectly flat water surface. The salt layer beneath the lake is extremely thick, ranging from roughly 16 feet to nearly 49 feet, with reserves estimated to supply China's population of over 1.4 billion people for almost 100 years. One of the most iconic sites is an old railway track stretching more than 2.5 miles straight into the center of the lake, originally built for salt transport, and now a major photography landmark. During rainfall, the outer surface of the salt statues partially dissolves, but sunlight causes the salt to recrystallize, creating a natural self-repairing process. Visitors can rent protective boots to walk far into the lake, where ankle-deep water extends endlessly toward the horizon, producing a highly unusual spatial experience. Chagan Lake is one of the largest freshwater lakes in China, known for the winter fishing ritual, where massive nets haul up hundreds of tons of fish at once from a frozen surface. Each net stretches roughly 1.2 miles beneath thick ice and is pulled entirely by horsepower, with giant horses serving as the only engines instead of modern machinery. Every winter, thousands of people step onto the ice to repeat a fishing method dating back to the Liao dynasty around 900 AD. Hundreds of ice holes are drilled with precise spacing to encircle fish schools beneath the vast lake, forming a harvesting system that appears almost geological. During only a few festival weeks, over 2 million pounds of fish are harvested without depletion, as the lake's ecosystem remains balanced through natural regeneration in extreme winter conditions. The Three Gorges Dam spans the Yangtze River in Hubei Province, China, and is regarded as one of the largest hydroelectric structures ever built by humans. The reservoir behind the dam holds about 39.3 billion cubic meters of water, with a total mass estimated at roughly 42 billion tons concentrated within a fixed section of the river valley. This enormous redistribution of mass altered Earth's moment of inertia, slowing the planet's rotation by approximately 0.06 microseconds and shifting the geographic pole by nearly 2 centimeters. The dam body was constructed using about 988 million cubic feet of concrete and more than 510,000 tons of steel, an amount sufficient to build 63 Eiffel Towers. To make room for the reservoir, 13 cities, 140 towns, and over 1,300 villages were removed, forcing around 1.3 million people to relocate in the largest resettlement operation ever recorded for a hydroelectric project. Mount Imei is one of the 4 sacred Buddhist mountains of China, where extreme terrain, stratified climate, and religious heritage intersect across more than 2,000 years. The statue of Samantabhadra here stands about 157 feet tall, weighs roughly 728 tons, and is gilded with real gold, serving as a sacred landmark above the clouds. At the highest elevations, sunlight refracts to create a rare phenomenon known as the Buddha halo, where a human silhouette appears on cloud layers surrounded by a perfect circular aura. The cloud sea of Mount Eme forms a shallow ocean of vapor that conceals the landscape below and at times becomes cascading cloudfalls, dropping thousands of feet into the valleys. Rainforest conditions dominate the foothills,